My article was called Early Life Stress, Frontoamygdala Connectivity, and Biological Aging in Adolescence, and it's a longitudinal investigation by Miller et al. In 2020 that investigates the effects of early life stress on the connectivity of the amygdala. So, just a quick overview: exposure to ELS in early childhood and early adolescence has significant effects on brain development. Early life stress may accelerate frontoamygdala development related to socio-emotional processing, serving as a potential source of resilience. Just a quick introduction: the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex are sensitive to a wide range of experiences of ELS during development. ELS is associated with the earlier development of inverse or negative frontoamygdala connectivity and has been associated with better outcomes such as effective emotion regulation and lower levels of internalizing symptoms. This picture on the right here shows the regions of interest of this study. The yellow is the basolateral amygdala, or the BLA, and the red on the left side is the centromedial amygdala, or the CMA, and then on the right is the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, or the MPFC. So the researchers conducted this study with three goals in mind. First, they assessed whether and how ELS was associated with frontoamygdala connectivity. The second set of analyses evaluated two different hypotheses on whether and how frontoamygdala connectivity is associated with changes in telomere length in puberty. And finally, the stress acceleration hypothesis, which is a previous hypothesis, suggests that negative frontoamygdala connectivity results in adaptive outcomes in the context of mere exposure to adversity. And the researchers also examined whether the severity of ELS resulted in associations between the connectivity and telomere shortening and pubertal tempo. So there were 214 participants, 121 were girls, 93 were boys. They were ranging from 9 to 13 years old. They were gathered from the local community using flyers, media, and online advertisements. Since girls reached puberty earlier than boys, they were matched on self-reported pubertal stage rather than chronological age, which resulted in females having a lower age than the mean. ELS was operationalized in this study as stressful events occurring up to adolescence, and the adolescents completed interviews assessing exposure to 30 different types of stressful experiences using a version of the Traumatic Events Screening Inventory for Children, and then these results were turned into code by a panel of trained raters. So the participants passively viewed pictures of faces of men and women expressing 6 different emotions, which were anger, disgust, fear, happy, neutral, and sad, and they viewed 8 different pictures. The researchers then administered an MRI to scan neural activation in response to these stimuli, and then the researchers conducted correlation and regression analyses to examine if there were any associations between the variables, and any outliers were identified using box plots. So the results of this study showed that participants who experienced higher levels of ELS had greater activation in the right CMA, or central medial amygdala, and more negative right and left CMA VMPFC connectivity, which is the ventromedial prefrontal cortex. Participants that experienced ELS showed increased negative connectivity. These associations show that connectivity is associated with telomere shortening and pubertal tempo differently at low and high levels of ELS severity. Frontoamygdala connectivity during socio-emotional processing appears to affect cellular aging and pubertal development. Negative connectivity between the MPFC and amygdala has indicated more effective emotion regulation, and positive connectivity between these regions is more typical in childhood and reflects less mature circuitry. And this graph on the right shows the central amygdala connectivity and right central medial amygdala activation. And as you can see, there are the positive and negative associations compared to how much early life stress was experienced. The researchers also observed heightened amygdala activation in the right CMA in adolescents who were exposed to higher ELS. The study suggests that negative frontoamygdala connectivity is an adaptation to ELS, which provides protection against accelerated cellular aging and pubertal development, and has been linked to resilience against early anxiety and more efficient emotion regulation. The frontoamygdala connectivity appears to be unrelated to biological aging in adolescents who were exposed to less ELS. Negative frontoamygdala connectivity was associated with slower telomere shortening and slower pubertal tempo, which is slower pubertal development, and it was significantly stronger in adolescents who had experienced higher ELS. And then early life stress has overall negative implications on the amygdala connectivity and brain functionality because it forces these adolescents to develop the adaptation and mature faster than their peers and adolescents that have not experienced as much ELS. And the limitations of this study was that the measure of ELS was based on self-report. And then the chart on the right shows the interactions between the severity of early life stress and magnitude of frontoamygdala connectivity.